Hello, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in Twin and Beyond. My name is Taylor, and welcome back to Table Tested. Today we're going to be taking a look at a game called Inayah, Life After Gods. Now this game came out on March 27th, 2025, was developed by Exogenesis Studios, and published by Head Up Games. I did receive a review code through Press Engine, so thank you to Press Engine and Head Up Games for said code. As per usual, I will not let it affect my review of the game. With that being said, let's get into it. So I have spent about 3 hours with the game at the time of recording, and have a fairly decent idea of kind of how it goes and what's happening. Now this, as you can see on screen, is a side-scrolling action platforming Metroidvania. You've seen this a dozen times before. What helps this game stand out is, in my opinion, two things. One, the art style, especially in the cutscenes, is gorgeous. Everything is hand-drawn and looks amazing. Even the backgrounds, especially the backgrounds, during gameplay look really great. The animations don't necessarily stand out too much during the gameplay itself, but again, the cutscenes and the backgrounds look incredible. The other thing that stands out is the fact that you are given access to 3 different weapons that not only change the way you approach combat, but also the way you approach exploration in the levels and kind of the semi-open areas that you experience. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So in this game, it opens with a cutscene with Inayah, the main character, narrating what happened to her. As a young girl, her tribe was attacked by another tribe in golden armor for no apparent reason. They were mercilessly slaughtered, and Inayah was left alone, where she's picked up by Kanzu, a wandering traveler. And then he kind of basically raises her from being a young girl to become the woman she is today. You open up on them sitting at a bonfire, just discussing life, and Inayah clearly has this hatred, this resentment to whoever attacked her tribe, because there's no explanations to why, no answers, that she desperately and clearly wants. She then falls to the floor and the game begins. You're given a basic tutorial on how to, jump, move around, platform, that sort of thing. And then you make your way back to Kanzu, where he literally unceremoniously dies. A giant, drilling machine thing starts kind of burrowing through the walls, creating a side-scrolling runaway mission where you have to escape the boss without being killed yourself. It felt very abrupt. Now, I do understand, creating a little bit of an emotional connection with Kanzu and giving Inayah a reason to care, but then killing him off so quickly seems a little, yikes. Anyway, you escape into this, again, really gorgeous kind of cutscene as a train is rolling through this beautiful background. And then Kanzu appears at the end of the train ride as what I can only describe as a Force ghost. Like a Star Wars Fallen Jedi Force ghost. The same kind of wibble effects, the same light blue coloring, all that jazz. So he will continue to be with you in a much easier form for the player to digest and the devs to deal with story-wise. Anyway, Inayah's goal at this point is to find her tribe, if there are any left, and find the family that she never had. Well, I shouldn't say never had, but find family beyond Kanzu now that he's gone. In that search, she finds her father's gauntlet. So she had one, but at the time that her tribe was attacked, her father had lost his arm. So she had one of his gauntlets, now she has the other one. And she puts them on. And this is a narrative beat, but not a mechanical beat. It does nothing for you mechanics-wise. Immediately after that, though, you are given a choice of 3 different weapons. Now, I'm going to describe each weapon combat-wise and traversal-wise, and then get into why I both love and hate this mechanic. So, the first weapon that I went with, because I have tried all 3, was the fists. It felt thematically appropriate. You're retrieving gauntlets. She's using fists on the cover art, and your basic attack was fists at the beginning of the game before you got the other gauntlets. So I was like, okay, the devs are clearly pushing me towards these fist weapons, towards these gauntlets. And so I grabbed them. And the basic properties of the gauntlets are you can attack at a medium rate of speed, do medium damage, but you can't move when you're attacking. You are completely stationary. As a result, you're able to generate heat, which you can then click in the right stick. I did use a controller for all of these to kind of continuously attack. as well as generating a small shield. You have another ability, which again lets you generate a small shield to nullify one hit of damage, and a kind of fireball, almost like Spirit Blast, like Kamehameha Wave from Dragon Ball Z type motion, to again shoot a fireball. So that's it combat-wise. Traversal-wise, it lets you wall jump off certain surfaces that are highlighted in orange on your map, as well as kind of just hang there for a second. Additionally, you can use your energy blast, fireball, whatever you want to call it, to not only hover in the air, but while you're hovering, choose the direction that you fire the fireball, and then it will blast you slightly in the opposite direction, right? Like if you shoot it down, you'll go up slightly. If you shoot it left, you'll go right slightly. So it helps you kind of get over just that little bit, or maybe maneuver that one little corner in certain areas, but also it gives you a second to breathe while you're hovering in the air. The second weapon that I tried out was the blades. Basically knives, quick, low damage, and just nice, easy, smooth attacks. You have again, ranged kind of throwing knife attack. You also have a block skill, and then I couldn't quite figure out like the special that you build up. I believe it's just more critical damage. Didn't fully understand that one. And then this kind of motion or traversal skill is you can, do an upward slash to help, again, give you some height, similar to how the Fire Blast works. You can also do what I would call the Hollow Knight jump, where you attack down on a spike surface or something sharp. You not only avoid damage, but you help move forward. I'm sure there's an actual term for it. I always called it the Hollow Knight hop because that's where I really first experienced it, was in Hollow Knight. And lastly, you get the flail. Now the flail is super big, super chunky, super slow. Idea is it hits like crazy. I did not try this one out too much, given I was honestly the least interested in it, and its attack speed was abysmal. Even for a heavy hitter, it was rough. Now this one's traversal skill is you get to teleport to certain points, kind of up and down, depending on where the nodes are, and it'll kind of launch you in that direction as well. So you get a bit of momentum as you do so, and the idea is you're meant to collect all three weapons and combine their traversal mechanics to kind of deal with even more challenging platforming. That's great in theory. I love the idea of it. I also love the idea that if you were to pick one weapon, it would change the route that you went throughout, especially the first few levels, to, slowly unlock the other weapons. Here's my problem. You find all three weapons within 20 minutes of each other. Like, you get the first weapon, you can immediately go to the second. You can almost immediately go to the third. And it kind of kills me because I don't necessarily want all of these options right away. I want to get comfortable with one. I want to see what I can explore. Then maybe 25% of the way through the game, get the second weapon. Then, I can go back. I can explore areas I hadn't even been able to access before. Go 50% of the way through the game. I can go back again, explore even more, and then by that point I will have not only kind of familiarized myself with the weapons I already had, especially traversal-wise, it would feel so much more rewarding to get them later on in the game as opposed to getting them right away. Now, I've only played about 3 hours of the game, and that is technically over 2 separate files because I realized, as I mentioned, I took the fists first. That was the wrong decision. Now, I don't mean to say that there is a black and white 100% right or wrong option. What I mean by that is, it is not the most useful weapon, especially traversal-wise, in the beginning areas. So, like I said, I took the fist weapons. I found myself getting stuck a lot. Yes, I was able to wall jump and get through certain things. Yes, I was able to round certain things that I couldn't otherwise, but I couldn't break fragile walls because you need the flail for that. I also couldn't cut down vines because I need the blades for that. I don't actually know what type of non-platforming obstacle the fists could get through, because there was one that I looked like I could get through with like an orange glow on the door. I was like, oh, the fists are orange, this is orange, maybe, that'll work out. Could not figure out how to open that. So there was honestly a good half an hour of me going back and forth trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, what I needed to do next, and not knowing how I could actually get there. So we also need to talk about combat. In all honesty, I did genuinely forget about it in the first recording session, so I'm here for a second one. And I think part of the reason is the combat is very basic, especially in comparison to things like the cutscenes, the animation, the platforming. Like, combat is just there. Now, I say that because most of the basic enemies are, as it sounds, pretty basic, pretty easy to deal with. I did fight a couple bosses, and I'll try to put some of the footage on screen. And I could tell that for some of the bosses, they clearly took inspirations from, again, things like Hollow Knight and other things. When I fought one, I don't know if he's a boss or mini-boss, to get my second weapon, he was doing attacks that I remember the Mantis Lords doing, again, from Hollow Knight. So there's clear inspirations from other games, but I don't know how well they were necessarily integrated into, like, the everyday enemies. The bosses do stand out a little more, but there's nothing really blowing my socks off. And, you know, I admit, it's the first area of the game, first couple hours. It's going to be hard for me to see all the complexities and things that go into combat, but it didn't feel like as much time was put into combat as was put into traversal and the cutscenes and things like that. So it doesn't help the game, it doesn't hurt the game, but it definitely doesn't, you know, strike me as a really notable thing, especially given the fact I forgot to talk about it. So yeah, combat's pretty generic, and there's not a lot more to say about that. What does make the game more interesting is the upgrade system. So there's a couple different things you can do to upgrade and change your character. One being the generic skill tree, where, you know, you buy skills that mean you either do more damage or other conditional things happen. What I've seen with the skill tree isn't too far-fetched, I guess you could say. Like, you know, you pick certain upgrades, which will lock you up other upgrades. These are primarily percentage-based, it looks like. You know, you do more damage during this, or do this type of attack, and then you get a bonus to the next action or whatever you do. Nothing really game-changing there. What I did notice, though, is with the implants, as they're called, you eventually unlock 8 separate upgrade slots, and each one, at least I think it's 8, and each one gives you a different bonus. You know, there could be additional health, you could change your roll into more of a dash. So that one feels like it'd be more substantial and let you kind of flesh out your character more, though I only found 2 of them at the time that I finished recording. And the final upgrade / companion, I guess you could call it, is Sputnik. Now, I haven't really talked about the term life after gods. Basically, the premise is this is a post-apocalyptic setting where previous humans, you know, more technologically advanced humans, were seen as gods, and they made a whole bunch of robots and other stuff. And basically, you befriend one of these little guys, known as Sputnik, and the idea is he can not only unlock doors for you, but he can also be upgraded with different things that I unfortunately, again, did not find or did not get to in my playtime, but he is a separate kind of upgrade / unlock tree. And additionally, you can just take control of Sputnik and then kind of like move him around as a camera, so to speak. Like, you'll follow him while Inayah doesn't move. I don't think you get attacked by enemies. I didn't take him around enemies just to be safe, but he's kind of a way to scout out certain areas if you don't necessarily want to try for them, or if you kind of want to see what's around the corner. So those do add more to the game, but it was very spread out and very complex, and I feel like if they had taken some of these ideas and kind of lessened them or even refined them more to have more emphasis and focus on a smaller number of ideas, it would have maybe come out feeling a little more, I don't want to say fleshed out, but more engaging, because everything feels okay, but it doesn't feel great. And I think if you had fewer mechanics you spent more time on, it would have felt great. So I said nope, and then I later was like, you know what, I want to try this out again. I promised myself, and I promised you, the audience, that in Table Tested I would spend more time with the games, and I did, and I will, and I am. So, I started a new save file. I picked the blades this time because I noticed a lot of the areas that were blocked off for me were accessible by cutting down vines. But to do that, I needed the blades. Now, again, I mentioned, you can get the other weapons. You do get the other weapons shortly after getting the first one. But I found it was harder to access those weapons using the fist than it was to just use the blades and make my way that way. So I grabbed the blades and I started working, just hacking at things, and it was so much easier because I could just cut down vines that were basically everywhere and get to areas that I had no way of accessing, or at least I felt like I had no way of accessing, using the fists, and then I could get to the second weapon, unlock the fists, get to the third weapon. I chose to unlock the flail at that point because there was nothing else, and that's kind of where I stopped. Now, the reason for that being is I had seen most of what the storyline had to offer in the first area. So basically, as I mentioned, you get your weapon after you're dead, your dad's gauntlets, but then you come across Rongo. I forget his name. Rango, I think it was. Anyway, it was one variation of that. He was not a Beatles drummer, unfortunately. He was just a guy who was trapped by this mutated carnivorous plant. So you rescue him, and he's like, oh, hey, I have two more friends, the Tamer of Iron and the Pathfinder. I need you to look for them, will you? And this is where I was kind of surprised, because I knew there was voice acting in the game, from the cutscenes, from the initial dialogue, but it was nice to see that it bled into more than just the main character and her mentor figure. It bled into every character in the game, and this dialogue, while not perfect, was honestly delivered pretty well, and I did appreciate the fact that there was story and voice acting for every character, because I know sometimes they'll voice at, the main character and maybe the other important characters, but kind of leave off some of the side characters. So to see that was great. I appreciated the delivery, I appreciated everything about that. Great, awesome, loved it. Here's where my issue came in. I rescued the Tamer of Iron, he went back to the base, and then I got stuck, because the game hits you with, okay, here's the 5 things you can do, pick one. I was like, okay, I'll try to do this. I don't know how to get there. It shows you what room it's supposed to be in, but not necessarily how to get there. Now, I appreciate that not everyone wants a very hand-holdy game. I get it, I don't either. But what I would like personally, as someone who's not very, I shouldn't even say not very well versed with Metroidvanias, I've been playing more and more of them because of the channel and for the channel. Anyway, my experience with traversal and exploration is not really there. My brain doesn't work like that. So what I would honestly love is an option to just turn on, okay, give me a hint on how I can get there. What rooms do I need to go through? What would I need to access these areas? Because you get a very minimal, here's a basic description of the quest. That's it. Which for some people is fine. For me, not so much. Anyway, so I got the Tamer of Iron, and then I was trying to find the Pathfinder, and that's when I was like, you know what, I can't do this. So I put it down, picked it up again later, got the blades, I'm just going to call him Rango. And then I went and fought the Sea Witch, who then said, hey, let's be friends. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I found the Pathfinder, meaning as far as I could tell, I'd found every major character story-wise in the first area. And I was like, okay, this is good. And you know what was interesting is, with you being Inayah, there are certain points, at least with Kanzu, that you get dialogue options, because it'll be like, oh, it's good that you're branching out from just this focus on revenge, this focus on death and grim and blah blah blah, and you can say as Inayah, like, oh, they were in my way, oh, I pity them, oh, they're gonna die soon. Or you can be like, listen, it doesn't make any sense for me to leave him to die, or maybe we'll be friends one day, right? Like, you get 3 options for each time you do get an option, and it does say it will change or kind of alter Inayah's path at the end. I don't know how much that's true, because a lot of games will say, oh, choice and consequence, their favorite thing, and then there's no consequences. So that was interesting. No idea if that's going to go anywhere. But yeah, like I said, I've experienced the main NPCs for the first area, and I hated the fist weapons from a traversal mechanic standpoint. Now, what I believe is going on here is each area seems to have a traversal mechanic that it's going to focus on primarily. And I think the first one, because it has so many vines, so many areas you can, again, Hollow Knight hop over, the first area is focused on blades, I think. And then I'm assuming the second and third areas, and however many there are in total, will focus on a different traversal mechanics so that each weapon feels important, each weapon feels significant, and there will be times when you need to combine them, meaning you do one, then you cycle to the next one, use that, then you cycle to the next one, use ability from that, right? Like, I was also reading Reddit posts before playing the game that talked about how the sheer weapon juggling for platforming can get frustrating in the late game, but I have not personally experienced that. Now, I did watch a full game playthrough, quote unquote, did not watch it all the way through, just was trying to figure out, okay, where do I go? And that's when I noticed they were using blades in the first area. Anyway, that runs about 9 hours. So that gives you kind of an idea of, if you're looking for most things, what is this game going to run you? About 9 hours. Now, with all that being said, the game retails for $36.99 Canadian, so probably $35 around there US or your regional equivalent. I do want to recommend this game because it's a really dedicated team. It's got amazing artwork, and it's an interesting system to be able to switch between 3 weapons that not only affects combat, but again, also affects traversal. That being said, if you are not into hardcore platforming, it makes it a little harder. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned up to this point is the difficulty, because it is a difficult game, but that can be made easier by changing difficulty options, would you believe? So the game does feature, your typical easy, normal, hard, but also custom difficulty where you can separate out the combat difficulty from the platforming difficulty, or at least you're supposed to be able to do that. So when I started a new game with the blades, did easy difficulty, because I was like, you know what, it's easier enemies, it gives you a double jump, which proved invaluable in just easing some of my frustrations, because it meant I could just get around areas where I might need the fists by just double jumping. It meant I could do other things by just double jumping, and I do understand that some purists or just some people might look at that and go, that's not the intended experience from the devs, that is not how you should play the game. Now, I understand where they're coming from. I always play a game on normal first to get the intended experience. But the intended experience had me ripping my hair out, and part of the reason for that was the gauntlets. So, my own fault. But also, if you're going to opt for 3 options, make them equal, or make them at least viable for the areas that they're offered in. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up at the end is because it does change my opinion on the game, in that playing on easy gives you that double jump that makes your life so much easier, but it also takes away some of the challenge in the intended experience. The other thing is, when I tried to change just the platform to stand easy, but the combat on medium, or like normal, or whatever you want to call it, it wouldn't let me change the platforming. It kept changing the platforming to normal, keeping the combat easy. Even when I tried to do the opposite, it would not stick. So I had to go with both of them on easy, and I understand that that is going to skew or change my view of the game versus what you might experience. So I have a harder time saying play this game when I enjoyed it the most when I was not playing the way the devs had intended. There is a free demo that I will link in the description down below, as well as the full game. I will also link that. Please, 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 if you are thinking about checking this game out or want to experience it, play the demo. Demos are incredible. Demos are there for a reason. It gives you a great slice of what the game should be, what the game will feel like, and whether or not you think you'll enjoy it. I do want to recommend the game from the standpoint of, it's a small indie team. I want to see more stuff from everyone, and more things on the market is always a good thing. But also, games need to be fun and not frustrating, and I think the intended experience should be challenging, but not as frustrating as it became with this game. So, I've rambled a little bit because it's a little bit of a conflict for me personally. But anyway, I want your thoughts on the game's appearance, the gameplay, all that kind of stuff. And let me know if you check out the demo. I'd love to hear about your own experiences in the comment section down below. With all that being said, thank you, ladies, gentlemen, everyone between and beyond, so much for being here. Really appreciate it. This game has been officially table tested. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!